Welcome to the vaults of the unwelcome truths. This is The Great Corruption, an essay on history of the alliance between institutional religion and the powers that be, and the inherent sin of this atrocious symbiosis. Chapter 1. The Holy Racket. Now gather round, ye gullible souls, and let me whisper a secret into your pious ears. Religion, my friends, or rather its agents and institutions, are not the opiate of the masses, as some misguided soul once proclaimed. Nay, they are the opiate dealers, cunning peddlers of dreams and fears, master manipulators of your most primal instincts. For centuries, these self-proclaimed intermediaries between you and the divine have woven a tapestry of deceit, a grand illusion designed to keep you docile, obedient, and firmly ensconced in your place. They speak of love and forgiveness, yet their history is a blood-soaked testament to the opposite. They preach humility, yet they dwell in palaces of gold, adorned with jewels that could feed a starving nation 100 times over. They demand your unwavering faith, while their own faith in your gullibility remains unshaken. They claim to represent a higher power, yet they operate with the cunning of the most ruthless con men. They exploit your deepest fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of death, the fear of eternal damnation, to control your thoughts and actions. And what, pray tell, is the price of admission to this heavenly club? Blind obedience, of course. Surrender your reason, your logic, your critical thinking at the altar of faith. Question nothing, doubt not, and above all, pay your tithes. For the coffers of the church must be filled, you see, to fund the lavish lifestyles of the clergy, to build those magnificent cathedrals that pierce the heavens, to wage holy wars against those who dare to question the divine order. But let us not fool ourselves. These holy wars are rarely about faith. They are about power, about land, about resources. They are about enriching the coffers of the ruling class, about expanding their empires, about subjugating those who dare to resist. Religion, my friends, is the perfect tool for such endeavors. It provides a convenient justification for the most heinous acts of violence, cloaking them in the garb of righteousness. It transforms ruthless conquerors into divinely appointed liberators and turns innocent victims into infidels deserving of their fate. So the next time you hear a sermon about love and compassion, remember this. It is likely a smokescreen, a carefully crafted illusion designed to distract you from the true nature of the beast. Chapter 2. A Catalogue of Carnage, Sanctified Edition. Now let us delve into the dusty archives of history and unearth some delightful examples of religious fervor in action. Prepare yourselves, for what you are about to witness is not for the faint of heart. Take, for instance, the Crusades, a glorious series of holy wars waged in the name of the Prince of Peace, no less. For centuries, European knights, their hearts ablaze with religious zeal and a healthy dose of greed, marched eastward to reclaim the Holy Land from the infidels. They left a trail of blood and tears in their wake, slaughtering Muslims, Jews, and even fellow Christians with equal enthusiasm. Cities were sacked, populations were massacred, and the streets ran red with the blood of the innocent. All in the name of God, of course. Then we have the Spanish Inquisition, a truly magnificent spectacle of religious persecution. For centuries, the Catholic Church, in its infinite wisdom, hunted down heretics, witches, and anyone else who dared to deviate from the official dogma. Torture was their preferred method of persuasion, and they employed it with a truly artistic flair. The rack, the Iron Maiden, the strappado, these were but a few of the delightful instruments they used to extract confessions and save souls. And let us not forget the countless religious wars that have ravaged Europe over the centuries. Catholics against Protestants, Protestants against other Protestants, everyone against everyone else. Each side convinced that God was on their side, each side willing to kill and die for their particular interpretation of Scripture. Rivers of blood flowed across the continent, fueled by religious hatred and the insatiable lust for power. But these are merely the highlights, the most egregious examples of religious violence. The truth is, the history of religion is littered with countless smaller atrocities, acts of cruelty and oppression perpetrated in the name of faith. From the witch hunts of medieval Europe to the religious conflicts of the modern world, the pattern remains the same. Religion is used as a justification for violence, a tool to control and manipulate the masses, and a means to secure the dominance of the ruling elite. Even in more recent times, we find examples of this. The conflicts in Northern Ireland, the wars in the former Yugoslavia, the ongoing tensions in the Middle East, all have a strong religious component. While other factors are at play, religion often serves as a powerful rallying cry, a way to divide people and incite hatred. So the next time you hear someone speak of the unifying power of religion, remember the catalog of carnage it has left behind. Remember the millions who have suffered and died in its name. And remember that while religion may offer solace to some, it has also been a powerful force for division, oppression, and violence throughout history. Chapter 3. The Secular Saints and Their Sins. Now don't get me wrong, it would be a grave error to assume that religion holds a monopoly on violence and manipulation. Oh no, my friends. Secular rulers have proven themselves equally adept at exploiting the baser instincts of humanity for their own gain. They may not invoke the name of God, but they have their own idols, their own sacred texts, their own rituals of control. Consider the Roman Empire, a marvel of engineering and administration, but also a brutal machine of conquest and oppression. The Caesars, those self-proclaimed divinely appointed emperors, ruled with an iron fist, crushing dissent and expanding their empire through relentless warfare. They offered bread and circuses to keep the masses entertained and distracted, while they amassed wealth and power beyond measure. Then we have the great European powers of the colonial era. Driven by a thirst for resources and a belief in their own racial and cultural superiority, they carved up the world among themselves, subjugating entire continents and exploiting their inhabitants for centuries. They may have paid lip service to ideals of progress and civilization, but their actions were motivated by greed and a lust for dominion. And let us not forget the 20th century, a veritable festival of secular savagery. From the horrors of the world wars to the totalitarian regimes of Stalin and Hitler, the world witnessed the devastating consequences of unchecked power in the hands of secular rulers. Millions perished in the name of ideology, in the pursuit of a utopian vision that turned into a dystopian nightmare. These secular saints, these champions of reason and progress, proved themselves just as capable of cruelty and oppression as any religious zealot. They employed propaganda, censorship, and state-sponsored terror to maintain their grip on power, just as the church had done for centuries. They created their own cults of personality, their own sacred narratives, their own rituals of devotion. The difference, perhaps, is merely in the packaging. Instead of invoking the wrath of God, they invoked the will of the people, the march of history, the triumph of the proletariat. But the result was often the same: violence, oppression, and the concentration of power in the hands of a select few. So let us not be fooled by the false dichotomy between the sacred and the secular. Both have been used and abused to justify the most heinous acts. The problem, it seems, lies not in the belief system itself, but in the human heart, in the insatiable lust for power that corrupts even the noblest of intentions. Chapter 4. The Perpetuation of the Ploy. Now how, you might ask, has this grand charade continued for so long? How have these power-hungry elites, both religious and secular, managed to maintain their grip on the masses for centuries? The answer, my friends, lies in a carefully crafted system of control, a multi-pronged approach that targets the very core of human nature. First and foremost, they exploit our innate fear of the unknown. Religion offers comforting answers to life's biggest questions. Where do we come from? What is our purpose? What happens after we die? These answers, however simplistic or fantastical, provide a sense of security in an uncertain world. Secular ideologies offer similar reassurances, promising a utopian future if only we adhere to their doctrines. Secondly, they appeal to our desire for belonging. Humans are social creatures, and we crave connection and community. Both religious and secular organizations provide a sense of belonging, a feeling of being part of something larger than ourselves. This sense of belonging, however, often comes at the cost of independent thought and critical inquiry. Thirdly, they utilize the power of ritual and symbolism. From religious ceremonies to national holidays, rituals and symbols reinforce the prevailing ideology and create a sense of shared identity. These rituals, often repeated mindlessly, serve to indoctrinate individuals from a young age, instilling in them a deep-seated loyalty to the established order. Fourthly, and perhaps most importantly, they control the narrative. Through control of education, media, and other forms of information dissemination, they shape public opinion and perpetuate their own version of history. Dissenting voices are silenced, alternative perspectives are suppressed, and the masses are left with a carefully curated worldview that serves the interests of the ruling elite. This control of the narrative is particularly insidious. It allows them to rewrite history, to portray themselves as heroes and their opponents as villains, to justify their actions, no matter how heinous, in the name of a higher cause. This manipulation of information creates a climate of fear and suspicion, making it difficult for individuals to discern truth from falsehood. And finally, they employ the age-old tactic of divide and conquer. By fostering divisions along religious, ethnic, or social lines, they prevent the masses from uniting against them. While the people are busy fighting amongst themselves, the ruling elite continue to consolidate their power and enrich themselves at the expense of everyone else. This, my friends, is the secret to their success. By exploiting our fears, our desires, and our vulnerabilities, they have managed to perpetuate their control for centuries. It is a system that has proven remarkably resilient, adapting and evolving to meet the challenges of each new era. Chapter 5. A call for clarity and a touch of hope, perhaps. So where does this leave us, you might ask? Are we doomed to forever be pawns in this grand game of manipulation and control? Is there no escape from this cycle of violence and oppression? I would be lying if I said I had all the answers. The problems we face are complex and deeply rooted in the fabric of human society. But I do believe that there is hope, however faint, for a better future. The first step, I believe, is awareness. We must recognize the mechanisms of control that are used to manipulate us. We must question the narratives we are told, challenge the authority of those who seek to control us, and cultivate our own critical thinking skills. We must learn to distinguish between genuine spirituality and organized religion, between sincere belief and cynical exploitation. We must recognize that true faith is a personal matter, not something to be imposed upon others. We must also be wary of secular ideologies that promise easy solutions to complex problems. We must be skeptical of those who claim to have all the answers, and we must be vigilant against the concentration of power in any form, whether religious or secular. Education, of course, is key. An informed and educated populace is far less susceptible to manipulation. We must promote critical thinking, encourage open debate, and foster a culture of intellectual curiosity. And perhaps most importantly, we must learn to empathize with one another. We must bridge the divides that separate us, whether they be religious, ethnic, or social. We must recognize our shared humanity and work together to create a more just and equitable world. This, of course, is no easy task. It requires courage, perseverance, and a willingness to challenge the status quo, but I believe it is a task worth undertaking. For if we are to break free from the cycle of violence and oppression, we must first break free from the shackles of manipulation and control. Now, I am not so naive as to believe that we can create a perfect world. Human nature, alas, is what it is. But I do believe that we can create a better world, a world where reason and compassion prevail over fear and hatred, a world where individuals are free to think for themselves and live their lives without fear of oppression. This, then, is my call. A call for clarity, a call for critical thinking, a call for empathy, and a call for action. Let us cast off the chains of manipulation and control, and let us strive to create a world worthy of our shared humanity. It is a long and arduous journey, to be sure, but it is a journey we must begin if we are ever to reach our destination. And who knows, perhaps, just perhaps, along the way, we might even find a little bit of truth. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of hope. This concludes my little sermon, or rather, my little rant. I hope I haven't bored you too much. And if I have, well, I suppose you can always blame it on the devil. After all, he gets blamed for everything else. I've been Dark TwAIN. and these are the vaults of the unwelcome truths.